Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott and in this episode we're looking at the top players to target in game week 36 Sun Dream Team. There's just 2 game weeks left of the Dream Team season and game week 36 is all Premier League teams kicking off at the same time for the final Premier League round of fixtures. So kick-off for every team is at 4 o'clock. The deadline is Sunday 3 p.m. We won't be doing our usual deadline stream like right before the kickoff. We're actually going to be doing a live stream with Dream Team Tonic on the Saturday, sort of similar time to usual. But I'm watching Arsenal-Everton on the Sunday, so won't be available to deadline stream. So we're going to do it a day early on the Saturday. There will or should be leaks potentially out there for all the teams because it's not an early kickoff. Everyone kicks off at 4 o'clock, so do keep an eye out on Twitter. I'll try and reshare these bits as much as I can, but being at the Arsenal game, I'll probably be a few drinks in, trying to keep the nerves down ahead of that final game of the season. But game week 36, so all teams play, so there's not really any double game weeks, so there's not anyone that we can target in particular. The only things that stand out straight away is game week 37. We have the FA Cup final, which is Man United versus Manchester City. So the only real fixture differences we can get is by going for City or going for United. So the obvious moves really, if you want to get extra fixtures, is to target either of these two teams. Man City is looking like the obvious one, but maybe there's a few at Man United. So we'll be looking at these single game weeks first in game week 36 to pick out what we think are the best single game week fixtures in game week 36. 4 transfers left for the end of the season, so 2 before game week 36, and then we will have 2 fixtures before that final in game week 37. I know that's been a pretty popular question since they changed things around last season, but we will have 2 fixtures for this game week and then 2 fixtures for next. It's been confirmed by Dream Team. So you can either use those to build your team to put out sort of the maximum amount of players in that game week 37 fixture, or you may want to use them to maybe take a few punts in game week 36. Maybe you're trailing in your mini leagues and you want to jump up, catch some ground. Everyone will be sort of, not everyone, but a lot of people will be doing these City moves. So if you are looking to do something different, maybe these game week 36 fixtures is the way to go for you. So let's have a look who has the best single game weeks fixtures in game week 36. So I'll mention Man City and Man United first, just because they have got the 2 fixtures. So Man City have West Ham at home, final game of the season, win, and they will be the champions. So obviously, Man City are always going to be one of the best teams to target. They have the extra fixture as well, and you must say West Ham at home, a West Ham team that don't really have anything to play for either. That does look like a really, really good fixture on paper. As much as it pains me as an Arsenal fan, that West Ham fixture is a great one for us to be targeting. And then Man United in the cup final. Obviously, anything can happen in a cup final, but you'd have to say Man City would be strong favourites for that tie. So if you are looking to go to Man City players, got no arguments with that. It does seem like a decent move, and I think it will be pretty popular. And on that as well, like I said, because they have to win the last game of the season to be champions, and because it's a cup final, you're probably not going to have the usual rotation risks that you would normally have at the end of the season with Manchester City. Man United away to Brighton, but follow that up with the FA Cup final. Brighton have lost 3 of their last 5 fixtures. They've got nothing left to play for either. And Man United still have a chance at Europe. They've obviously got another chance as well with that FA Cup final, but Man United still got stuff to play for. I guess there's a chance that maybe they could take players off early or something with that FA Cup match. But yeah, there's a little bit of time between the final and the weekend fixtures. There's a whole week to recover. So maybe if Bruno is still suffering, they may take him off early, something like that. But I don't see it. I think you'll be fine. Arsenal, again, like City, it's a must-win game. They've got to win against Everton. And then they've got to hope that Man City drop points. So Arsenal is going to be pretty much unchanged again, I imagine. And against Everton at home, Arsenal will usually do pretty well. Final game of the season. And Everton are safe as well. So I think that looks like a decent fixture. Liverpool, home to Wolves. Klopp's final fixture, a send-off. Maybe they'll go all-out attack. Wolves are safe there on the beach, and they're in really poor form at the minute, conceding a lot of goals. So Liverpool, we're going to mention those in this episode. Newcastle, still fighting for Europe as well. Brentford away, though, I don't quite think is the best fixture. But if you had gone for an Isak or you had gone for Anthony Gordon, you may want to still keep hold of them. And then Spurs away at Sheffield United. They didn't do Arsenal a favour in the end, but Sheffield United have conceded, I think it's the most goals in Premier League history. They're already down. So I do still think that this Spurs fixture away to Sheffield United could look like a good one to target for attackers especially. And then Crystal Palace, I'm going to throw them in last. So unbeaten in their last 6 with 5 wins. Scored 11 in the last 3 home matches as well. And they're against Aston Villa, who have now secured 4th place. So they will be playing in the Champions League. Pretty much mission accomplished. Job done for Aston Villa. I think we can probably say they are on the beach as well. So yeah, these are the teams that we are going to target. We'll kick them off now with the players to target from each of these teams. But just to reiterate, like I said, the way to probably go is going to be the fixture play with targeting City. But I'm going to mention these other teams as well, because if you are chasing in your mini leagues or you've got a lot of ground to catch up, you have got to do something different. You have got to hope for Mohamed Salah, for example, to do well, because there's not that many differential players that you can choose from Manchester City at the moment. So we'll start off with Manchester City. Back-to-back clean sheets. 5 clean sheets in their last 6 matches as well. So really have tightened up at the back when it's coming to this sort of crucial moment. They're in pole position in the title race, win and they'll be champions. So West Ham at home and then Man United in that FA Cup. Still must win, so I don't expect much rotation. We did see, to my team's detriment, that Walker was due to be benched for that first fixture in this double game week, and he never got that benching because he came on because Ake ended up injured. So maybe there's a chance that one of the defenders could be rotated for this one. They've got a lot of options. But overall, I expect them to play near enough full strength for both of these. So, like I said, logical play with Man City. 2 extra fixtures. Erling Haaland. Well, actually, before I say this, the guys that I'm going to name now are pretty much at this point owned by everyone. So, you're not really going to gain with them. I'm just going to highlight them. Maybe you'll want a differential captain from them. But, like I said, if you want to do something different, you're going to have to look at one of these other teams. Because Haaland, KDB, Foden, all massively owned. Vardiol, for example, as well, very highly owned. If you hadn't got these players already, people are going to be bringing them in. You're not really going to do anything else with these. But Haaland, 16 points this week, 2 goals against Spurs. And he gave us a reminder over the last 2 weeks of what can happen if you go against him for the captaincy. However, that could be still a route to go for if you are trailing a lot. But it would be scary. West Ham does look like a good fixture at home. Obviously, we saw what he did last week at home with those 4 goals. 14 points away at Spurs. 2 goals, one of them coming from the penalty spot. He's in 99.7% of the top 1K teams. And he's got 38 goals from 41 games. So if you are going against him with sort of one last roll of the dice, you know the risks. Kevin De Bruyne, 16 points this game week. Got an assist in both games. 6 goals, 19 assists for the season now. And again, 94% owned in the top 1K. Did take a heavy challenge in that Spurs game. Did look uncomfortable when he went off. So keep an eye out for updates. You might get the team news come out as well. But I imagine they'll do everything possible to start Kevin De Bruyne in that match. Phil Foden, 13 points for the game week, 24 goals, 12 assists, 99% owned in the top 1K. So these guys, unless it's a differential captain, you're not really going to make any gains with them. But if you do go with one of them, you know the risk of going against Haaland. Vardiol, 15 goals, 3 assists now for the season. He's just had a ridiculous season. So 2 goals in that first fixture of the game week. Because on 5 goals, 1 assist in his last 8 games. 5.9 average. And people have cottoned on. 85% owned in the top 1K. Bernardo Silva, 13 points this game week, so he's going to be on the fringes. So there's a couple, the guys I've named before are pretty highly owned already. Bernardo Silva is just 3.3% owned in the top 1k, so he will be a differential. But I think for a lot of people, it was a case of get those main guys in your team. Vardio was probably added on after. People start to look at a second City defender, and I think people are now going to start to look at the likes of Bernardo, Rodri, and then some outlying sort of defenders like a Kanji, for example. But Bernardo Silva got 13 points this game week, got 10 points and then 3 points in the Spurs game. Got 2 assists against Fulham, so we know he can get attack and returns. 11 goals, 8 assists for the season. I think out of this sort of add-on City midfielders, if you can call them that, he would be the guy that I'd go for. And then you had Rodri as well, who plays every single game. He's only got 7 points this game week compared to Bernardo's 13, and he's in 3.3% of the top 1k teams as well. So very low ownership, but I imagine that will spike, if not this week, definitely before the cup final. He's on 11 goals and 8 assists, so exactly the same amount of attacking returns as Bernardo Silva. Now, when it comes to the defenders, Kyle Walker trolled a lot of people this week. Obviously, it was all just pure chance, but Kyle Walker was supposed to be benched for that Fulham fixture, or he was on the bench, and Ake was starting. Now, Ake then picked up an injury. I think it was within the first sort of 20 minutes. So they had a bit of a move around, and Kyle Walker ended up coming on early in the first half, which gave him enough time to get the clean sheet in the Fulham match. And then he started the second match and got the clean sheet in the Spurs game as well, racking up 16 points for the game week. If you're like myself, I was going to bring Kyle Walker into my team, but after seeing ahead of the deadline that he was benched in that early kickoff, I opted to go a different route, and it turned out to be quite costly. But I've heard of people that had done their transfers already and didn't see the leak, and ended up keeping him. So it's worked both ways. The worst way I saw it was people swap from Kyle Walker to Ake, which is something that did cross my mind. And obviously, you had your player go off, you didn't get the clean sheet, and then Ake didn't start the second match either. He did make the bench, but didn't come on, so you'd brought in a City defender who ended up with no clean sheets versus Walker that got 2. Really, really unlucky there. So Walker, I think I'd still probably consider getting him in. The only thing is that he was due to be benched, and he never really did get that rest he was supposed to get, so that could be a slight risk, but I think I'd just chance it at this point. And then Akanji also got both clean sheets this week, so he could be an option, but we always know that that sort of centre-back role isn't that safe. You've got Diaz there, you've got Stones who's been on the bench, so it is a worry. It'll probably be the sort of last move I looked to do. But one thing we have had today is confirmation that Ederson is now out for the season. So I initially wasn't interested in making that Ortega move because I thought Ederson would play the final game of the season, and then obviously they'd switch to Ortega for the final. But Ederson fractured his eye socket in that match against Spurs, and it's been confirmed that he's out now for the season. So Ortega will play the West Ham game, and he will play the cup final. So if you're looking at your team and there's not much you want to change this week, maybe you could just go ahead and change your keeper, because I still think they look like 2 good clean sheet fixtures. Man United, they had their 1-0 loss against Arsenal at the weekend and then bounced back yesterday with their 3-2 win against Newcastle. Bruno and Rashford missed the first game, but both returned to the squad for the Newcastle match. And then Bruno came back in great fashion as well, with a really, really good performance. I thought I'd played a blinder by keeping Bukayo Saka and removing Bruno after seeing Bruno was missing from that first match, but Bruno looked seriously impressive again. I've got his little graph up on the screen from ffstuff.co.uk. Obviously, those 2 did not play fixtures, but then back with an 8 points against Newcastle yesterday, and look at all those double-figure returns he's got. So obviously a really good option if you want to bring a player in that's going to have 2 fixtures, or if you've already got him, you'll obviously keep him. They have an outside chance of Europe. depending on how results go on the final day, but they could also qualify through the FA Cup final. They play Brighton, who have lost 3 of their last 5 matches. I do think this final fixture does look okay on paper. Bruno Fernandes probably would be the only one that I would look to target, though, to be honest with you. I haven't really been that impressed with Man United. Bruno, back with a man-of-match performance, 8 points, an assist, bonus points, shots on target, tackles, and big chances created. He's now the 6th highest scoring player in the game, which is 2 points behind Mohamed Salah, 15 goals, 12 assists. And it's been a pretty decent turnaround this sort of last part of the season, because I think a lot of us did start with Bruno Fernandes and he disappointed early. We took him out. There was a little spark that he looked all right again, but he disappointed again. And then that put us off bringing him in sort of for a lot of the season. But towards the end, his performances have improved and his point scoring's improved. And he is back where he belongs, sort of at the top of the overall stats. Onana, I could possibly consider him. So it would be between Onana and Ortega. Onana had 10 saves across the 2 matches, so they are giving up so many chances. 7 points for the game week as well, so not too bad. It would be whether you fancy Ortega for the clean sheets or Onana for the saves. I think that's the comparison you'd have to make. But I think I'd probably just pass on United defence or goalkeeper, to be honest. So that's the 2 teams with 2 fixtures remaining out the way, Man City, Man United. Now we're going to look at some, we'll call them punts, from the teams with just the 1 fixture remaining. So final game of the season. So Arsenal, they've got 5 wins in a row, 4 clean sheets out of their last 5. So nice and solid at the back. And it's a must-win game against Everton, who are safe from relegation. But Everton are also unbeaten in their last 5 matches and have 4 clean sheets from that 5 matches. So no pushovers at the back. And Arsenal's win against United was a pretty cagey performance. So just because it's the last game of the season, the pressure is on. It might still be another little cagey one. Saka, 45 points over the last 4 game weeks. 1 point behind Havertz and Ben White, who are the top point scorers over the last 4 for Arsenal. 20 goals, 16 assists for the season for Saka. And he's got 2 goals, 1 assist in his last 4. I've got him currently in my team, and I'm intending to keep him for this Everton fixture. Everton do have Mikalenko injured, so I quite fancy him up against Ashley Young. He's obviously the penalty taker, and in his last 3, he's averaging 8.7, so pretty high scoring. I fancy him to perform, but not enough to risk captaining him or anything like that. Kai Havertz is another option if you're looking for a differential. 3 goals, 2 assists in his last 4 games. His end of the season has been brilliant. 13 goals, 10 assists for the season. He's got the most points over the last 4 game weeks for Arsenal, so another good option sort of in midfield or in attack. He's playing as that striker. You've obviously got Ødegaard and you've got Trossard, but I think Saka and Havertz are probably better options than Ødegaard. And with Trossard, despite him being really good, there is always that sort of cloud hanging over him of he probably is always going to be the first player subbed off for Martinelli. So Saka, Havertz are the 2 that I'd go for if I was targeting Arsenal. On the defence, I think fine to hold if you have them. So obviously, like I said, 4 clean sheets out of their last 5. I've currently got Raya, Gabriel and Ben White. I think there's absolutely no problem keeping them. I think their fixture's just as good as Man City versus West Ham. Don't think there's much in it. The only real reason you'd want to move off, I think, is to go to Man City and hope for that extra fixture. On to Liverpool. So they are at home against Wolves for Klopp's final game as Liverpool manager. So it's a bit of a soft factor. Obviously, it's one of them things that you've got no proof that it will happen. But in my head, and I think a lot of people's heads, it's going to be an attacking game, an exciting game from Liverpool for this Klopp send-off. So pressure's off now at this point. They've got a 3-3 draw against Aston Villa and a 4-2 win at Spurs in their previous home match. So there have been scoring goals, and Wolves have conceded 13 in their last 5 away matches. That does include the 5 against Man City, so that did put a big dent in it. But Wolves are conceding a lot of goals, and the only guy that I would really target from this Liverpool fixture is Mohamed Salah. He did blank in this last fixture against Aston Villa, but he has a 7.4 average points. Got 16 points in his last home match against Spurs with a goal and 2 assists. 25 goals, 15 assists for the season. So he has blanked recently. His form hasn't been the best. Again, I've got the graphic up from ffstuff.co.uk. And there are a lot of 2s and 3s and 1s in there as well. But we do know that he can haul. He's got 11 there, 11, 16. And I would fancy him to score. And if you were going to sort of pick out a differential that could score multiple goals, it would be Salah. He's on penalties. We've seen him do it before. I don't mind this as a punt if you are chasing. And even as a captaincy option if you are behind in your mini leagues and you did want to go against Haaland. That Mohamed Salah probably would be the guy that I'd go for if I was going against him. Currently only 15.5% owned in the top 1k. I feel like a few people will take a punt on him. So yeah, it's just his recent form has been a little bit off, but I do sort of fancy him for this sort of fairy tale ending for Klopp leaving. Chelsea make it 4 wins in a row into the Europa Conference places in 6th. Still a small chance of claiming 5th as well if Spurs end up losing to Sheffield United. There could be another Europa League place open up as well, depending what happens in that FA Cup final. But Chelsea are in decent form, and you would fancy them for this final fixture at home at Bournemouth. They're actually unbeaten in their last 8 home games, winning 7. So Chelsea's form really has turned around recently. And a big part of that has been Cole Palmer. 3rd most points overall. 6 points off of Phil Foden in 2nd. He's got 24 goals and 17 assists for the season. 41 attacking returns from 45 games with an 8.1 average. He has been incredible and scored a really, really nice header in this one as well. 10 points with that goal against Brighton. He's scoring all types of goals. I know at one point we were all sort of giving him a bit of stick that it was all just penalties, but we've seen him score all types of goals now this season. And he could be a differential captain pick for Game Week 36. He's shown that he can hit double figures regularly throughout the season, and he does perform significantly better at home as well. So Cole Palmer could be a differential captain again if you wanted to go against Erling Haaland. A lot of people have, well, pretty much everyone's already got him in their team already. So if you did want to get a bit of a boost from Cole Palmer, it would be by captaining him. And then Nicholas Jackson. He did blank, only got 2 points against Brighton, but he did get 9 points with a goal against Forest. 11 points for the game week. 17 goals, 7 assists for the season, and he's got 3 goals, 1 assist in his last 2 home matches. So another one that has been performing fairly well at home. Nkunku did come back and score, but I don't expect that he's really going to take any minutes from Nicholas Jackson. So there'd be the 2 guys that I'd target from Chelsea, Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson. And I think Palmer could potentially be a good differential captain. On to Spurs. A 2-0 loss, or they might call it a win, against Manchester City. A 2-1 win against Burnley in the game previous to that. So Sheffield United have conceded the most goals in a Premier League season with 101. Spurs can't get 4th now, but they do really need to win, sort of keep that Europa League place. And Ange Postecoglou seemed pretty angry after that Spurs match against Man City. So I think angry Ange is going to want a reaction. And the fans probably are going to give a reaction as well after. We'd say it was a weird atmosphere in that Man City game. Son, just the 9 points for the game week. Someone that I had in my team, and I must say I was a little bit disappointed with that 9 points. Obviously, even more disappointed with his miss right at the end in that Man City game. So 5 points against City, 4 points against Burnley. No attacking returns this week. It's just typical. 3 shots on target though, and some big chances missed. So I'll be keeping for this Sheffield United fixture. There's no way I'm taking him out for this one. I'm hoping maybe that with Sheffield United already being down, they might open up and try and play a bit of football for their home fans on the last game of the season. And hopefully that does play into Spurs' hands. I would even potentially consider him for captaincy as a big differential if I was chasing a big amount of points. But for me, I can only captain Erling Haaland this week, I think. But the form hasn't really been there for Son. That's the only downside. If it had a good week last week, we would have felt more comfortable doing it. I think a lot more people would have felt comfortable doing it. But after we've seen Haaland do really well over the last 2 game weeks, it just seems a little bit scary to go against. I wouldn't be interested in any other Spurs attackers or defenders, to be honest. Then Newcastle. So we had the 1-1 draw with Brighton and then a 3-2 loss against United. Not quite what you'd have hoped for if you did go for Newcastle players. It's still to play for. They could still get Europe. They're 3 points off Chelsea. They play Brentford away from home, which out of some of these teams, I don't think it is the best fixture. Obviously, Brentford haven't got anything to play for either at this point, but out of some of the other teams that we have mentioned, I don't think this is the best fixture. Brentford have won 3 of their last 5 fixtures and had a 2-1 win against Bournemouth last time out. Isak would have been the one that we'd say to target. I think a lot of us went for it last week, and it was a disappointing 5 points across 2 matches. So with his recent good form, that was really quite disappointing. Just 1 shot on target across the 2 games, and I can't help but feel like I'm having no luck with these strikers at the minute. The minute I bring them in my team, they just seem to go a little bit cold. Wilson is out, so there's no problem. I expect that Isak is going to continue starting. He's got 24 goals, 3 assists for the season, and is on penalties. Arguably could have had, or should have had, a penalty in this match against Man United. Anthony Gordon had studs down his Achilles. Should have had a pen, in my opinion. Maybe we'd be looking at this a little bit differently. So maybe unlucky there. For a 1 week punt though, if I was looking to bring in a striker, I'd prefer a more attacking fixture from probably Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, or even Palace, who we're going to mention in a little while. Anthony Gordon done well, 13 points for the game week. Goal, bonus points, shot on target, big chance created. Also may have had an assist for a penalty if it was given, but it wasn't. 11 goals, 17 assists for the season though. Really, really good season from Anthony Gordon. But like I said, I probably wouldn't be moving towards Isak or Gordon. But if I had them, which I have got Isak, I probably will consider keeping. On to Crystal Palace. So these would be a real end of season punt. They've been really, really impressive since the new manager's come in. They're unbeaten in their last 6 matches with 5 wins, scoring 11 goals in the last 3 home matches. Mateta, Elise, Eze have been combining really, really well. Really exciting to watch. And they play at home to Aston Villa, who have now secured 4th. They had their sort of end of season party. We saw them celebrating that 4th place. They are firmly on the beach now, in my opinion. So Mateta with 53 points, Elise with 52 points are the 3rd and 4th most, or players with the 3rd and 4th most points over the last 4 game weeks. Villa's last clean sheet came 8 games ago as well, ironically against Arsenal. They have been conceding quite a lot recently, though. 3 goals against Liverpool, 6 across the 2 games against Olympiacos as well. So I think this matchup looks pretty good. Crystal Palace is attacking versus Aston Villa's sketchy defending. So Elise, 52 points across the last 4 game weeks, averaging 8.9 points per game, and is the 2nd highest average overall behind Erling Haaland. 18 games, 35 bonus, 10 goals, 5 assists. He's taken some of the set pieces as well with corners. I do think that he would be the best player to target from Crystal Palace. On current form, you could even say that it'd be a differential captain. If you look at some of these returns, 14 points against Wolves, 16 points against Manchester United. He had a 7 point and a 1 point between that. Then 14 points against West Ham. He had a few 5-2-1 in between, but then sort of back game week 18, 18 points. Game week 21, 18 points. 14 points in game week 17. There's so many double figures there because he gets these bonus points and his attacking returns come quite regularly. So I do think as a real differential captain, I've obviously named Son, I've named Palmer, Salah, but as a real differential captain, Michael Elise could be the one. Mateta, 53 points from last 4 game weeks, 16 goals, 6 assists, in really red hot form as well. 6 goals in his last 5 matches. And then Eze, Not as many points in the last 4, 37 from his last 4 game weeks, but 9 goals, 6 assists for the season, and he is their penalty taker as well. 47 bonus from 30 games. On to my team update then, but before we do, if you've enjoyed the video so far, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'll be doing regular Euro 2024 Dream Team content throughout the summer, starting off with a how to play guide, and then I'll work through players to target, and then I'll be doing sort of daily episodes throughout the tournament. But this week, started the week at 160th. I've currently fallen down to 174th, so it started really well with those Arsenal clean sheets, but those Manchester City clean sheets and then Bruno Fernandes' performance has set me back. I was always planning for Son to come in for either Saka or Bruno, and obviously both sort of carried a little bit of risk with their injuries. I went and opted for Bukayo Saka, and before the kickoff, when I saw that Saka was starting and Bruno wasn't, I thought I'd played a blinder. Saka only came away with 4 points, and it looked like Bruno was going to be ruled out of the Newcastle match, but Bruno did return from injury for that Newcastle match and put in a good performance, so outscored him by 4 points. I was then planning to bring Kyle Walker in for one of my Arsenal defenders, but we saw, like I mentioned, that benching news, and it really did spook me. I was maybe tempted to go for Ake, but decided against it. And I thought what I'll do instead is go for a more attacking approach, target these double game week strikers. And so I'd already got Son, and I was looking at getting Isak. I thought his fixtures looked good. So instead of bringing in Walker, I went for the extra attacker in Isak. Kyle Walker then went on to get 16 points, like I mentioned. Came off the bench early for that Ake injury. But at least I didn't go for Ake, because that would have turned out worse. But yeah, this move set me back to potential 8 players for game week 37 by taking this punt on Isak, who obviously doesn't have the extra fixture. So it has set me back, and it's also set me back quite a few points. So Isak obviously scored 5 points versus Walker's 16. And then Son scored 9 versus what Bruno Fernandes is sort of 8 points. So not my best moves of the season, and it has set me back a little bit. So planning for the next game week, I don't particularly need to move any of my back four. I've got Raya, Gabriel, White, all at home against Everton with something to play for. And then I've got Vardiol home to West Ham, who is in incredible form as well. The only reason these Arsenal spots could be up for grabs is to move for the extra City fixtures. So backline looks fine. Then when we sort of look into midfield and attack, I've got the 3 key City players in there. I've got Haaland, Foden, De Bruyne already. They're not going to go anywhere. So that only narrows it down to sort of Saka against Everton, Palmer against Bournemouth, Isak against Brentford, and Son against Sheffield United, which all look like pretty strong attacking fixtures. All have something to play for, and they're all versus a team that are on the beach, for example. So all those fixtures look pretty good. This team is fine. So it will be having one eye on the extra fixtures in game week 37. So I was thinking about dropping one defender down, maybe keeping Ben White, dropping Gabriel for Kyle Walker. But after today's news that Ortega is going to be playing the last 2 remaining fixtures for Man City, I'm kind of thinking Gabriel and Ben White both have decent attacking threat. And if I move a Gabriel or Ben White to a City defender, obviously they could end up popping up with an attack in return. Vardiol's the most attacking from Man City, so he's fine to keep hold of, but you wouldn't say there's a massive attacking threat from the other City defenders. So I wonder whether it's just worth maybe changing David Raya to Ortega. You're only going to get sort of clean sheets out of either of them. They don't make loads of saves. So that probably could be one of my first moves, Raya to Ortega. It's boring, but gets me an extra player for the final. But out of the other players, I'd say Isak is probably the weakest option there. I don't hate that fixture at all. He's had a poor game week. He had a good game week the week before, a good couple of game weeks the week before. It would be typical that if I took him out, he'll then go and score. But I probably would say that Isak probably has the weakest fixture out of them. So if I was going to move on Isak for this game week, probably Bernardo Silva would be my likely go-to. I'm not entirely convinced that Bernardo Silva outscores Isak in 2 fixtures versus 1. He's done all right this game week, outscored him this game week, so entirely possible. But yeah, Isak is capable of scoring a brace, of performing well, so I think it will be tight. But I think that seems probably to be the sensible way for me to go. If I bring in just City players, I can only get to 8 now for game week 37 by bringing in 2 City this week, 2 City next week. So it's looking likely that it'll be the Raya move to Ortega, and then depending if any injury news or anything pops up, looking to get Bernardo Silva into my side early. Giving me 8 for the final. I don't feel confident enough to go against Haaland in a home fixture against West Ham. I'm in a fairly alright position overall. I'm in an alright position in some of my mini leagues as well. I don't really feel like I'm in a position where I need to take a big risk, but I do like that idea of Salah in for the final game of the season against Wolves, and even potentially captain him. I wouldn't do it in the position I'm in, but I do like it. And I had considered Isak to Salah, but I think the way I've set my team up to currently only have 8 now for the final, that move would give me 7 for the final. I just don't think that will be enough to sort of hold rank. So I don't think I'll make that Salah move, but I do like it. So for me, probably Raya out and probably Isak out currently. That is everything for this episode. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And do check out our latest episode of the Dream Team Tonic podcast. I'll link it up next. And we'll have our deadline or early deadline stream on Saturday morning. So do keep an eye out for that one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.